Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Family Issues. Dear brothers and sisters, in this episode we will be discussing what I think is a very important and a very interesting topic. Again, it is you that choose the topic, and via your comments and your suggestions and your ideas, we pick what we think is best. The difference between raising children of different gender, the difference between raising boys and girls. What should parents be wary about, and what should they focus on while they are raising boys or girls? The importance of raising your children properly. Are there big differences regarding the process? Any stuff that is specific to raising boys, or other stuff that is specific to raising girls? How do we go about the relationship between brothers and sisters? How do we make sure that there's no jealousy between boys and girls? That and much more, inshallah, will be discussed here. As always, we'll be glad to receive your phone calls on our phone numbers that will be appearing on the screen. We will also be ready to receive your Facebook comments at our Facebook address, and your emails, and all addresses and numbers will be written on the screens. Please stay in contact with us, dear brothers and sisters. On behalf of you, we welcome here in the show Sheikh Zaid Al-Ansari, renowned Islamic Da'iyah. Thank you very much, Sheikh Zaid, for keeping us company here in Family Issues. It is really a pleasure to us, and we always love to have you on the show. Sheikh Zaid, I think it's the issue relates to you because, Bismillahi mashallah, alhamdulillah, you have 4 boys and 4 girls. So yes. I think no one can tell us better about this issue, the difference between raising boys and girls.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You know, the requirements of raising boys and girls for Muslims is that we've been given a perfect prescription of how to do that. Basically in Islam, we have a fitrah that tells us what the disposition is. The man is not like the woman, and the woman is not like the man. So we start from that premise. Then we have a sharia that guides us to how to do that. And it occurred to me when I looked at your topics here, it says raising children of different gender. You know, I think we have to keep in mind that raising children towards what? What are we raising them towards? A lot of people in the West, and unfortunately even some Muslims, think their responsibility is just to raise the child without any specific direction in mind. But we do have a direction in mind. And that direction tells us how to raise them with the technical skill, the wisdom, the knowledge, the details of the differences between boys and girls.
So you want to tell us that many things come naturally when we obviously there's little difference between 1 or 2 year olds.
Well, let me give you an example. In the fitrah that Allah put in the creation, we see that girls come to bulugh earlier than boys.
Right.
So what do we do with that? What does that teach us? That the requirement to teach the girl a sense of what it is to mother, what it is to be compassionate, what it is to take care of a household, what it is to cultivate good emotional integrity, is something that begins with the girl maybe 2 or 3 years earlier than the boy. Mm. If parents don't know that and treat the girl equally, that this biological experience is just a mistake of nature, we don't get the divine import of why this took place. So this period of where the girl becomes prepared for managing the household, teaching good emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, being a comfort to her children and her husband. She's taught that at sometimes, girls come into Balug at 10 or 11 years old. So a different set of instructions have to be in place at that time. Boys come later. And then what Fitra requires of them is a different set of expectations. One day you're going to have to take care of a household. You're going to have a specific set of skills. You're going to have to do well in school. You're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to look at the community and being a supporter and provider for guidance in the community. So here's a whole new set of expectations of what our responsibility is as parents to start shaping those kinds of directions in those early years.
Right. Now, is it right to assume that there's basically no difference in the way we would be treating a 1 or a 2-year-old, whether it's a boy or a girl? I mean, at those very early months?
I think at those very early months, things are more equal. Biology hasn't made its footprint as significantly as it does in the later years of 8, 9, 10 years old.
Right. In between, there is a difference as well. I mean, maybe at 3, maybe, I don't know.
Well, no, there has been studies. There has been studies that
right.
there are significant cognitive differences in the advancement of girls over boys at 5 and 6 years old. There is different motor skill differences in the ability of boys to manipulate, physical activities over girls at certain periods of their biological development. Now, this is going to vary according to different children,
right,
and the family setting. But these are general things that each parent should know about our role as teachers and nurturers of our children, of what to expect in terms of their development.
Now, from the point of view of the parent, now, obviously, maybe at 3, maybe even at 2, there starts to be some differences between even the way the boy or the girl acts when he or she is mad or happy. You find the boy is a bit macho and the girl is naturally softer.
Or different. I have one daughter that she, at 3 years old, was very assertive.
Was very?
Assertive.
Okay.
Even aggressive. That her 2 older brothers used to actually be afraid of her.
SubhanAllah.
Okay? She grew out of that. She grew out of that. But I don't think that there's something that we, like I said, it has to be case by case, child by child.
Indeed. So anything different that we should do as fathers and mothers with our young boys and girls, say 3, 4, 5, anything different? And if so, what are these different things?
I think we have to begin very early because of the shubahat and the confusion in the world today over teaching them what are gender roles and what do gender roles require. How do girls dress and behave that is consistent with the fitra of the woman? How do boys dress and behave that's consistent with the fitra of the man? Today, as you know, you can go to one of the shopping malls, and if you don't have 20/20 vision, you can confuse the difference between boys and girls in appearance and in mannerisms because gender roles have been blurred because of society's norms. So I think we have an extreme, big responsibility to early on, girls don't have to play with dolls and boys don't have to play with guns. But they do have to understand what their gender role requires of them in the period of maturation and development as they move on to adolescence and to adulthood. And that must begin at a very early age.
Right. So you have a 3 or a 4-year-old boy and girl, both of them crying because you as a parent refuse to buy them a certain item. Should we deal differently when we talk to the boy or to the girl with that act of crying?
I don't, in my experience with my 8 children, I don't see that there is a great gender-specific way to deal with their disappointment or their happiness. There is a slight nuance. Girls may cry quicker, boys may cry longer. And I think for us to understand that nuance and to deal with that nuance with gender-specific tactics of how to get them to settle down or to feel safe and to feel secure is, again, based upon the disposition of the child. I know one of my children, as an act of inner strength and maybe even defiance, refused to cry. Till she turned red. She refused to cry.
Subhanallah.
And so we had to understand that. That was a gender-specific thing. It had to do with her nature and her personality, very stubborn. We had to use very gentle, persuasive encouragement for her to come out of that position. Some other children behave differently. But I think if we pay too much attention to gender-specific tactics, we'll overlook the uniqueness and the beauty of the child's personality at times. So you have to pay attention to both in combination.
Indeed. Barakallahu feekum. Again, a question regarding some situations that could occur. You have a 7, 8-year-old boy and girl, and they have to study for the exam, and they both refuse to study. Should you, act in a different way if this is a boy or a girl, or is it going to be exactly the same way with the same advices, the same, logic behind trying to convince them that you have to do this for your own good?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think for all practical purposes, there has to be some different approach. I know if I tell my daughter her access to her social network of friends is finished, and if I tell my son his computer is dead, it will have a different effect. Girls are much more sensitive to social connections. My son can sit in front of the computer and not utter a word for a solid 20 hours, and it won't bother him a bit. My daughter has to have social connections, interaction. So I think the way that we deal with them in that gender-specific way is to, remind the female that you're going to lose these things that are important to your emotional makeup. And for the male, you love to be in this tunnel where you're completely in your own head with this stuff on the computer, and you're going to lose that. So that's the way I would approach,
Right. And
as an example.
Indeed. I'll be back to that example again, but again asking, about situations that I guess occur daily. You have a 5 and 6-year-old boy and girl, and you're trying to teach them Quran. They're trying to learn Quran by heart, and they both start, to not to take things as seriously as they should. Again, the reaction. Will it be different, and should it be, and why?
Yeah, I specifically wrestle with this issue with my boys. They are extremely creative of finding thousands of excuses of why they can't study Quran. My daughter is a little more dispositional to do this. I think she's older because she understands, the import of the Quran, what it means. But my sons, when we finally corner them and get them to sit down and do it, they're extremely quick and efficient in it, and their memories are alhamdulillah. Their memories are very good, and they can do it. But to get them settled down, to get those male hormones, in one place, and to have them to sit down and do it without them bouncing off 10 other ideas of what they want to do, I think there is a difference there.
Indeed. And back to the 3 examples, allow me, Sheikh Zaid, to go back to them again from the viewpoint of the parents, so as to know how we should react, and whether the reaction should be different, and what, in your view, should the words look like when we are talking to our kids. Say the example of the studying. Shall I be telling the boy, for instance, those who study are going to make it well and are going to have a lot of money and are going to be successful and can give, for instance, a lot of sadaqah to the poor, and then they will go to paradise instead of being a beggar on the street and losing everything. And can I tell the girl, for instance, you have to know this so that you would be the most intellectual, the most respected, so that once you grow up and have kids, you'll be able to teach them and make them the best in this world, and so on. I mean, the approach.
Those are great examples. Those are 2 great examples. And I've used variations of both of those examples in some form. And I think, you hit the nail on the head.
So approaches are different.
Approaches are different because, I've often told my sons, listen, this role that you see me playing, you didn't see what happened for me to get to this role. The road that I had to travel. The road that, and I think the clearer we can show them the road that they have to travel, to look at us as a position, not just mom and dad, but as a position of what is expected, what they expect from us.
Yes.
My children never question if they open the refrigerator that there's going to be nothing in it.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. And this is from the ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this has to be a part of them understanding that the asbab, the reason why this happens, we can't expect for the ni'mah without.
And starting from which age, Sheikh, should kids know about?
I think is when they can understand language, when they can understand cause and effect. My son, I have a son that's 6. Before 4 or 5, early parts of 5 and later stages of 4, it was hard for him to grasp cause and effect. At 6 years old now, he understands that here are some things that I can do that I will have Abu's happiness. He'll be happy with me. Here's some things that I do that Abu would not be pleased with this. So he's now seeing cause and effect. So I think at 5 or 6 years old, maybe the child doesn't understand the ethical or the moral values in terms of the Islamic Aqidah. But they do understand cause and effect.
Right. Sheikh allows to take in Sheikh Zakaria Ibrahim, also a renowned da'iyah and a regular contributor with us here on Family Issues, to give us his insight on the topic. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Zakaria. Thank you for giving us your time. And please tell us, in your view, the main differences in raising up boys and girls.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Alhamdulillah for having us, giving us opportunity to speak. Nahmadu nusalli ala Rasul al-Kareem amma ba'd. Most of the time, yes, we do, and mashallah, the brother has been putting a few valuable points. And you know, just before starting with this, it's just a point that we need to give is that parents should know that they play a very big role in the life of their children. And you know, just as a point, I just wanted to mention this, that I once read in one of the books that was written by a scholar from the Indo-Pak, from the land of India. And he wrote a very beautiful article. He said that when we decide to make children, the decision is not when we are making the child or when the child is born, now that you want to set a different life for the child. He said the decision is from the time it enters your mind that you'll want to make children, the amount of azkar and the amount of intention and the correct intention and the way you take it forward. So we need to know that parents play a very big role in the lives, and especially when it is a boy. You know, the boy, he looks a lot at what the father does. So basically, the father is a person that is always going for salah. Like in our place where we live here, mashallah, there is a youngster who is every day with his father at every salah. You know, and while you see other youngsters who are not attending the masjid, who are not coming for prayer, and you see this boy every day, and it has become a part in his life, that he comes with his father every day, and he helps his father, and he takes his shoes out when they are coming out of the masjid. So basically, it's just the parents and the amount of connection they have. And then you have the daughter at home, which is a total different situation, because, you know, sometimes you need to sit down with them. You can't be shy. You need to explain to them. You need to be aware of their association. You need to be aware of what is happening in their lives. And especially in today's time where she could be sitting in the room, you'll be thinking that, you know, she's safe and there's nothing happening, there's no problem. But she could be chatting from the room, having conversations, doing other type of things. And like we read, the articles that we read in today's time will baffle the mind at what things a person can do in conclusion, in seclusion and being alone, and you just by using the cell phone and the things that could be happening. So it is parents should understand that as from the boy's side, he should try and also encourage his boy to recite his Quran from small when he comes back home, to go for salah and to be a responsible young man. And as for the girl, they should work on her honesty, and for her to always be open, and for her to be a modest girl, like how girls are supposed to be. So it is a different. There are different ways of raising a boy and raising a girl. And I think so the most important is that we can mention all these points and that, but the most important and the crux of this here is that the parents should know what is happening in the lives of the children by involving themselves and making the children not only their responsibility but also their companions, and being able to associate and communicate with them throughout the journey of their lives.
Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh Zakaria Ibrahim. Thank you very much for your fruitful input. Sheikh Zaid, dear brothers and sisters, we'll be taking a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing some of the ideas that Sheikh Zakaria mentioned and continuing to talk about our topic here in this episode. Please do not go away. We'll be back shortly, inshallah, dear brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum.
Never alone. You are never alone. You are never alone.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. Sheikh Zaid, Sheikh Zakaria in his phone conversation was going back to the same point you started with. Again, trying to engulf this, tackle this, encompass the idea of the importance, the huge responsibility on the shoulders of fathers and mothers while raising up their children. And you said at the beginning of the program, towards what? That's the main idea. A lot of times, there is this argument or this debate whether, when you're raising up a boy, is the father more important than the mother, or vice versa? And when you're raising up a girl, is the mother more important or vice versa? Can we have is there a direct answer for that question or debate?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think importance is misplaced. The value of importance instead of the value of proportionality. When the proportion of love and affection and devotion for when the father is rightly placed on the child, and the mother has the right amount of devotion and affection placed on the child, I think the child understands that proportion. At some points of development, the child is more inclined towards the father. Other times, the child is more inclined towards the mother. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I believe that inclination is based upon where they are in the maturity cycle, and how they respond to that, cycle of growing as human beings.
Right. Now, affection, since you mentioned that very important part of raising up children, we have to be affectionate. I mean, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us to be so. Yes. With our kids, and told us to hug them and to kiss them. And the question here is, should the degree of affection differ from a boy to a girl?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I in fact, I think it's a grave mistake to apportion out different levels or doses of affection based upon their gender.
Assuming wrongly, you want to say that the boy needs less of that.
Yeah, I think, there are several studies that indicate that the reason men have difficulty in some cultures with feelings, with compassionate display of feelings, is because their culture was stuck in some chauvinistic mode of men should be hard and distant and cold. When in fact, men and boys and girls, to grow up as healthy men and women, need the right kind of love and affection. Because this love and affection, this mawadda and this rahmah, that is a part of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in His asma wa sifat, His names and His attributes, is something that every human being needs. We cannot discount this. Some cultures have made extreme grave mistakes in cultivating a chauvinist persona for men and a docile persona for women when it comes to displaying or dispensing love and affection. And I think it's a grave mistake.
So you would assume, Sheikh, that you also think that when it comes to rewards and punishments, things should be of equal proportion if you're dealing with a boy or a girl. We do understand that the reward could be different and the punishment could be different of nature, but in the way you are dealing with your kid, the ratio of reward punishment or punishment reward according to their behavior should be equal.
Yes, as we're taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his famous statement in the meaning of the hadith. He said, even if Fatima stole, she would have the hudud for her hand. So there was no distinction in rank because she was the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or she was a female. The Sharia prescribes the hudud, the fixed punishments, equally.
So we shouldn't assume that, for instance, too much rewards would spoil a boy, or too much punishment would make the girl of a complex
No,
nature.
there again, I come back instead of the quantity, it has to be within the context of proportionality. You know, a small mistake should have a small admonishment. A moderate mistake should have a moderate admonishment. A big mistake should have a big admonishment, regardless of gender.
Right. Now you here's what could be a big mistake. A 13-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl, and you catch them on the internet, for instance, you know, doing chatting or talking, whatever, or doing stuff that is not permissible in our religion, in our morals, in our ethics, and that's dangerous for them. You realize that this could be dangerous for them. Would your reaction differ, and would your words be different to your boy from your girl?
Yes, definitely. Because we know from the Quran that Allah gives us a role in the, as He says in Surah An-Nisa, رِجَالٌ قَوَّمُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, that men are the maintainers and the protectors of women. So my daughter going astray in some chat room on the internet is dangerous, more dangerous to her than perhaps my son, because of the vulnerability of her having the chance to become abused in a more drastic way.
Yes.
But my son as well. But my son as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Allow me to modify this, and maybe make it of equal, proportion, if it could be described as so. You called the boy looking into wrong material.
Right.
So and the girl in the chatting and stuff. So you realize that it's very dangerous for both now, and they are both at risk. What would be different in your reaction while dealing with this situation?
You know, my reaction would be based on my personality. Okay. I become a little more mutashaddid, a little more extreme when I feel my children are in danger. And so for my daughter, I have to really think, because, you know, this has pushed my panic button. And I have to think about, okay, what's the best way to save her? The objective here is not to punish her, but to save her. The objective here for my son is to guide him. How do I guide him? He's also pushed my panic button. So it's really based upon our ability to control our anger and our emotion at that moment, and think about the redemption of saving our daughters from being victims and guiding our sons from being misguided, from falling into like pornography or other things that are so prevalent on the internet. So, you know, I really think that the differences have to be with, you know, the objectives of the Sharia is that we have an extremely strong principle in our religion of protecting our women. And the tarbiyah for boys, the guidance for boys, to guide them to be strong men and protectors of the community, protectors of their family, we have to keep that in mind. Protection for our girls, guidance for our boys. Both are guidances, but with different nuance. The different nuance because of the vulnerability of the woman and the vulnerability of the man, the boy. He's vulnerable as well, but the vulnerabilities are different.
Now, if you're dealing with the situation, the unfortunate situation that does happen at times of a brawl between the two 8-year-olds, for instance, the boy and the girl, how would you tackle this? How would it be different when the words are being?
Well, if there is in my household, there has been, you know, I've had to put on the strike referee shirt many times. And my message to my sons is, you know, your sister is like your mother. Would you strike your mother? No. Do you even think about striking your mother?
That's if she is older than him, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
regardless. Her role, older, younger, this is who you protect. This is not who you strike. And she may be in your face, she may be more skillfully verbally and beat you down with words where you feel angry enough to ball up your fist, but that's still someone. She's your woman. She's a woman. She's the female part of your family. You don't beat on her. You don't strike her.
What do you tell the girl?
Control your tongue. Get out of your brother's face. You know, I as I mentioned, I have a daughter who can be very, very assertive. And at those times, we would have to remind her strongly, you know, be quiet and leave him alone. You're going to push him to his limits. And she would be doing it to push his buttons, right? To get him angrier and angry and angry. Leave him alone.
We're trying, dear brothers and sisters, to give you as much examples as we can from situations in life and get the Sheikh's view on here, so maybe this could help us out. What would be different in your reaction, Sheikh, to a fight between two brothers or a fight between two sisters? You know, a serious fight, you know.
Physical?
Yeah. Boys naturally will be physical most of the time.
Yeah.
And girls, it doesn't have to be, but you know, serious fights between brothers or sisters. How would the reaction be?
Alhamdulillah, I have my two older daughters were disposed to fight, and they stopped. After a certain age, they stopped. My current set of my two older daughters, one lives in Kuwait and one lives in the United States. But my 6 children who live here with me, I have a zero tolerance policy on fighting. You do not fight. If you put your hands on somebody, you have transgressed their hukuk, their rights. You do not fight in this house. We do not fight.
But many times you can't, you know, you can't figure out who was
but I don't let it stop.
Or,
I understand that it happens. And when it does happen, I guess, you know, you have to make strong measures, in my opinion, that in this Islamic household, there is no mutual violence.
Indeed.
It has, This has to be a unbreakable rule. Although they'll try it, they'll start it. But a fight to get out of hand where people are losing teeth and hurting their knuckles and all that kind of stuff that you see in some places in the West, I just have a zero tolerance policy.
So we would understand that the approach is not different. If it's a fight between two brothers or two sisters, I mean,
no
it's the zero tolerance. I mean, it's not acceptable.
No violence. No violence.
Right. Right. We have with us Sister Shireen from Cairo. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for calling us. Go ahead.
Thank you for mentioning this topic. It's a very serious and dangerous topic and sensitive, and really we need that. Really need to know information on how to deal with our daughters and sons. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you, the presenter and the sheikh. And I want to ask a specific question about how can I deal with my daughter if she wants something and I cannot do it for her, but she insists on crying and crying, still crying. Maybe she's going to cry 1 hour until I do that. What can I do with her?
How old is she? How old is she?
She's 7 years old.
Okay. And is there a certain situation where she cries regularly, or?
She used to do that and to make us the parents to fed up and do what she wants.
Right.
Do it for her to
Does she have brothers or sisters?
She has a daughter. I have another daughter, but the other one is younger than her.
Okay.
3 years old.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sister. Barakallahu fiki. Sheikh Zaid will be answering.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As I said earlier, they learn cause and effect very early. And if we respond to their crying with compliance, maybe the crying is a result of us saying, you can't do this. And they continue to cry until we change our policy and let them do it. They know crying works. If I cry for 6 minutes, she'll break down in a minute and a half. If I cry for, another period of time, it'll take longer. But they understand cause and effect. Now, there are things that you can do to preempt the crying. I would say if it gets to the point where they're crying, then you've lost most of the battle. But if you can preempt the crying and teach them how to negotiate with you for the things that they want with a different manner or different tool.
But how can you preempt that? I mean, we can guess that the older girl is maybe trying to prove that she is as precious as she used to be, being a little bit jealous of her sister, maybe of her younger sister. How can you prevent that or preempt that?
Well, for instance, give her a scenario. Here's the scenario. Here's some things that you want to do. Okay? If you continue to cry, I'm going to continue to gently and lovingly reassure you that we love you, that we want your, have your best interest in mind, and I'm also going to continue to tell you no.
Yeah. All right.
So,
beautiful. Yeah.
Here's how I want you to express your disappointment when we tell you can't do something.
Boys, on the other hand, could press you by refusing to eat, for instance, instead of crying. So I'm not going to eat.
Okay.
And they keep pressing this, so because they want something.
Yes.
So what do you do with them? Do you also tell them, okay, we don't want you to eat?
My approach would be, And I can't even imagine that my sons like to eat.
Alhamdulillah.
But if
Alhamdulillah.
I had a child I would
Yeah.
approach it the same way.
Yeah.
I love you. I want you to be healthy. I'm here to protect you. But I'm going to continue to give you the same answer. And if you choose, it's your choice. Refrigerator is open. Your mother will go to the kitchen and cook you something if you ask her. But your choice not to eat is your choice.
In the minute, sorry, but in the minute left, because we have a minute left, who's more difficult in raising up, boys or girls? I mean, you have 4 and 4, alhamdulillah, mashallah. So from your experience,
From my experience, I think I have a perfect way now to be politically correct and say that they're equally as difficult.
That's a beautiful answer. That's a beautiful answer. On that note, and a diplomatic one as well. On that note, dear brothers and sisters, we have to end it here. Unfortunately, we're out of time. On behalf of you, we thank very much Sheikh Zaid Al Ansari, renowned Islamic Da'iyah. Thank you very much, Sheikh Zaid. Always enjoy your presence with us and hope to see you again soon, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum, Shaykh. Jazakumullahu khairan. And thank you, dear brothers and sisters, for watching us. Don't forget to keep your emails flowing and to continue to contact us via Facebook. Your comments and suggestions always mean a lot to us. And again, you're always a part of the decision making when it comes to choosing the topics. So we thank you for choosing this and the prior topics. And please do join us again, same time next week, inshallah. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.